Now, Donald Trump and Mike Pence both stating, though, that this is a week we are going to pass health care legislation. Here's Mike Pence in Washington here on Friday, I think it was, Saturday.
President Trump and I are confident when the time comes as early as next week, that Republicans and Senate are going to come together and they're going to move this bill forward.
Well, not quite. Not quite. The vote is so tight in the Senate. Is actually, remember, again, the Republicans have 52 Republicans. They don't want any Democrats. They have not talked to any Democrats. They have not reached out to any Democrats to support it. Mitch McConnell has said he wants this all to be a Republican deal, exclusive Republican. So 52, they need 51, or at worst, or best or worst, they could do 50 and have Mike Pence break the tie, which of course he would. They can't even get to 50.
It's incredible.
They can't even get to 50.
It really is incredible.
It is. And in fact, what's really incredible is this Mitch McConnell, who is such a master legislator, we are told, apparently not. So they pulled off a rare feat. Think about it. They took what was a lousy bill, the House health care bill, repeal bill, and they made it even worse in the Senate. And then they took a bad Senate bill, and they made that last week even worse. So each iteration has gotten worse and worse and worse to the point where they can't round up among themselves even 50 votes to repeal, even though, again, they've been promising it for the last 70 years. So now they're not going to vote this week. Why? And this is the ultimate irony. Because John McCain, senior senator from Arizona, who's 80, had to have some surgery over the weekend to remove to take care of a blood clot above his eye, which is not major surgery, they say, but any surgery when you're 80 is major, I think, and it requires cutting into the skull and getting in and taking care of this blood clot right above the eye. At any rate, he is out of action for a few days, maybe for a week. So they're so tight on votes, every single vote they need, and we're not even sure McCain would vote for it, that they have delayed the vote until McCain comes back, which is the ultimate irony of ironies. Think about this, my friends. Okay? So they've delayed the vote in order that John McCain, who has the gold standard of health care as a United States Senator, can come back to Washington and possibly vote for a bill that will take health care away from 22 million Americans. That stinks. No wonder why people hate Washington. No wonder why they hate politicians in general when you see something like that. It is outrageous, the very idea of it. At any rate, so what's going on with this bill? Well, one thing that happened over the weekend, too, is the nation's governors got together up in Providence, Rhode Island, and they soundly, together, Republicans and Democrats, said, this is a bad bill, and we don't want anything to do with it. Asa Hutchinson, governor of Arkansas, who's expanded Medicaid, said, no way. John Kasich, governor of Ohio, who's expanded Medicaid, Republican, said, no way. As well as Democratic governors across the country, Brian Sandoval in Nevada, saying, don't want anything to do with this legislation. The governors were told that this Senate bill will cut Medicaid funding in their states. And remember, Medicaid's the largest health care program that existed. 72 million Americans on Medicaid. 72 million. A lot of them, of course, in red states. A lot of them Trumpers, right? The governors were told that this bill will cut Medicaid funding for the states by 27 to 36%. And so the states are going to be stuck with this expanded healthcare population. and no federal funding to pay for it, or not, or 27 to 36% less federal funding to pay for it, it means that 15 million fewer people will be covered by Medicaid by the year 2026. So, bad bill. And there are, according to Susan Collins yesterday, she said if the bill, she's from Maine, she's a no vote. If the bill did come up today, you can't predict what's going to happen, but she says it'll be close.
It would be extremely close. There are many of us who have concerns about the bill, particularly the cuts in the Medicaid program.
And as I was just talking about, and Susan Collins said, this is why they need John McCain. This is how many senators are wavering.
On the Senate side, I would estimate that there are about 8 to 10 Republican senators who have deep concerns.
8 to 10, imagine that. And just one final point from Susan Collins is, again, they're taking Medicaid. They are capping Medicaid as it is, and then capping and cutting Medicaid, cutting the funding, cutting the benefits, without one public hearing.
We should not be making fundamental changes in a vital safety net program that's been on the books for 50 years, the Medicaid program, without having a single hearing to evaluate what the consequences are going to be.
Yeah, imagine that. It's uncanny what they're doing.
She talked about it there in that second clip about how many people are sort of wavering and where they land. There's more bad news, by the way, if you still haven't made up your mind on this. Washington Post, ABC News poll. Which healthcare plan do you prefer? Obamacare, GOP replacement, or neither? Obamacare, 50%. GOP replacement, 24%. Neither, 13%.
Right. And by the way, the House...
You know how hard it is to get to have on a poll like that?
Yeah.
I mean, it has Obamacare.
Yeah.
They call it Obamacare.
Yeah.
And half of Americans prefer
remember
that.
the House health care bill, 17% of Americans said they thought was a good bill. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was on CNN yesterday afternoon. Some of you may have caught that. And the point I made was if I were a Republican, who knows what's going to happen? Mitch McConnell may be able to get up to 50 or to 51. I hope not, but he might. But if I were a Republican, I would hope it I would hope it fails. I would hope they do not get to 50. You know why? Because they're going to own it. If this passes, the Republicans own this bill. And what does that mean? They're going to own a bill that will cut 22 million Americans, take health insurance away from 22 million Americans. It will cut Medicaid, where 72 million Americans, and now that's how they get their health care. It will enable people to buy crappy plans, cheap but crappy plans, basically snake oil, that they will feel, oh, good, I was able to get this health insurance for my family for just a total of $250, right? And then they turn around and somebody in their family gets sick and they find out, oh, that's not covered. No, that's not covered. That's not covered. It's just a con job. That's the Ted Cruz amendment, by the way, which Mitch McConnell adopted. So all of those things, they will own it. And you know what? It's just I've made this point before. Why don't Republicans learn from recent history? In 1992, Bill Clinton, first thing he did, we're going to do universal health care. And they went into health care in the first 6 months or first year, 2 years of his presidency, and Democrats got their ass whipped in 2004. I mean, in 1994. Barack Obama, right? Same thing. Barack Obama in 2009, what does he do? Jumps into health care with both feet, and what happens? Democrats got their asses handed to them in 2012 in the midterm elections. Republicans are doing the same thing. The first thing they do is to rush into health care. They should have done infrastructure first. Rush into health care, and if they pass this bill, they're going to own it, and they'll go into 2018, and they're going to get their asses kicked as well. So, I mean, again, as a Republican, I would say, let's hope this doesn't pass, because it's definitely going to be bad news. And if only somebody over there would come to their senses and say, you know what we ought to do? Why don't we just do this? Instead of trying to pass this crappy bill, let's sit down with the Democrats. They're ready to deal, and say, all right, what are all the parts of Obamacare we don't like? Let's work together to fix those parts of Obamacare we don't like. That's the solution. You know what? I said this again on CNN yesterday. They could get 85 votes that way if they did that. You know what? Because Obamacare doesn't do anything about prescription drugs, as Bernie Sanders keeps saying, let's add that in there. Obamacare does allow premiums to go up too high in some states. Let's take care of that. Maybe there's some people who are not covered because the plans are too expensive. Let's take care of that. Fix Obamacare. Mend it. Don't end it. Work with the Democrats in a bipartisan way. That's what the American people need, and that's what the American people want, instead of Mitch McConnell trying to run his own little shop. So that's the latest on that. I don't think they're going to get it. I hope they don't get it. But it just shows how thin that whole support for this legislation is, that they've now put it on hold yet again.